Welcome back to Season 4 of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Join me, Brad, each week as my guests and I share incredible and powerful sobriety stories. We're here to show sobriety is possible, one story at a time. Let's go! In this episode of the podcast, I sit down with Christine, a resilient mother and former nurse, who shares her compelling journey from a childhood affected by her father's alcoholism to her own struggles with addiction. Christine opens up about the challenges of growing up in a loving, yet dysfunctional household, the impact of her father's early death, and eventually her own battle with substance abuse. She details her difficult path to recovery, which includes losing her nursing license, the toll it took on her family, and her turning point. Christine discusses finding peace and purpose through sobriety, the support of her family, and the importance of honesty and community in her recovery journey. And this is Christine's story on the Sober Motivation Podcast. Good to have you here for another episode. Thank you, as always, for supporting the podcast and listening to these great stories. If you guys want to support the podcast to the next level, be sure to check out buymeacoffee.com/sobermotivation. Everything there goes to helping cover the subscriptions and everything involved with recording and keeping this podcast going. So if you want to make some donations, I'll also drop that link down in the show notes below. This was an incredible episode. So happy to be able to connect with Christine, an avid listener of the show, a member of the Sober Motivation community, and doing some really incredible things. So let's get right into this episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Today we've got my friend Christine with us. How are you?
I'm good. Very good. Excited.
I feel like a long time coming for us to connect and you to share on the podcast here.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's just been so much that's gone on, but now I feel like I'm ready, like it's time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's really great to have you.
Thank you.
What was it like for you growing up?
So growing up, I would have to say I grew up in a very loving household filled with lots of love, lots of dysfunction, but lots of love. My mom and dad had 5 children together, and my dad had another child before he met my mom. And I'm the second to youngest. My father is Black, my mother is white, so there's that. And I only say that because, there were some challenges with that growing up. Went to a pretty much white school and stuff like that, so just being a little bit different and kind of always feeling like a little lost growing up, like in that environment. Like I was accepted and stuff like that, and I had great friends and stuff, but I always did feel like a little bit of an outcast in some ways. But my father was an alcoholic. He drank really, really badly. I don't remember him really ever being drunk. I only have maybe like 1 or 2 remembrances of it. He was a happy drunk from what I'm told, but he kind of got sober when I was little. Like he started like dipping into that. My mom put us 5 kids in therapy when we were little. So when I was 5, I was already going to like counseling for addiction, like to learn about alcoholism and that my dad was sick and that he had a disease. And so I always kind of knew that alcohol was bad, and my mom never drank. So I would say, yeah, like a loving household. There was dysfunction. We didn't have a lot of money. My dad never really held a job. My mom did a lot of like outside jobs. Like she would take care of elderly people or clean houses and stuff like that. But what was always there was love. There was always so much love and faith. Like my mom got us going to church and stuff like that. So I always believed, and had that faith. And that gave me comfort. My dad was like this big, strong Black man. And I thought he was like the coolest thing in the world and like the strongest man in the world. And so I always felt safe when he was home. And I say that because he would go on binges and he would leave for periods of time, like a couple of weeks here, a weekend there, and he wouldn't come home. But like I just remember when he was home, I always felt safe. And I would, sleep in there with my mom and dad a lot. And there were times when my dad was gone and my mom said that I would be sleeping with his cowboy boots or like a picture that he bought or something like that. Like she'd find me sleeping with these things. And I don't really remember doing that, but all I just remember is that when he was home, I felt safe. So I'm thinking that I probably did that because I just wanted that comfort.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Long Island, New York, out in Suffolk County in like the suburbs, beaches around. We used to go to the town pool a lot. No really crime or anything. My grandma lived one house away from me. My aunt lived across the street, so lots of cousins. My mom's one of 11, so there's always a cousin or an aunt or an uncle all around the place. You always see somebody. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing that too.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, how did you do in school and what did that feel like?
I didn't like school at all. I mean, I was okay when I was there, but I never wanted to go to school. I would always cry and beg to stay home. And I knew if I cried and I missed the bus, and if my mom was going to make my dad drive me, he wouldn't take me if I was crying. So I used to cry a lot and pretend that something was bothering me. And I didn't do great in school. I mean, elementary was fine. I had no problems like that. My father did pass away when I was 11. Actually, my first day of sixth grade was the day he was going into the hospital to have surgery. So because he had cirrhosis of the liver, their thinking back then, this was 1994, was we'll cut the bad part of the liver off because the liver regenerates and, he should be okay. So he went in for this big surgery. Ultimately, he never came home. But I remember that morning I was going off to school and then he was going to go have surgery. So I remember standing at the doorway and giving him a hug and a kiss and, saying goodbye. And, that was pretty much it. The next time I saw him, he was, in ICU with like a tube down his throat and, he'd open his eyes here and there, but like that was it. So I think then like in middle school, like I was just filled with grief. Our whole world had changed, like my mom was only 39 at that time, left with 5 kids. And the youngest, my brother Michael, was 10, so she had 10-year-old 11. My other brother had just started 9th grade. My sister was a senior. And then my other sister was off at college. And then my other sister from just my dad, she was living her life in the city with her child. So a lot of change, and a lot of just figuring out how to navigate this new world without my father. And then, my sister ended up having a baby and that was crazy, but brought like a lot of joy to us too, because we were grieving and then we have this new little baby come along. So it was just a lot of, I would say, surviving, I think. And then in high school, I always said I was never really going to drink or do drugs or anything like that because of the history. My family is riddled, like rampant with addiction on both sides of my family, my mom's side and my dad's side. Like everybody has a problem. A lot of people have a problem. We all love each other and we all work through that. But yeah, so I remember, I think it was like in 9th or 10th grade and having my first drink. I didn't like beer, so I think I had like wine coolers or something like that. And at like my best friend's house, just me, my friend Vicky and Rosa, and we're all just the 3 of us drinking in her house, got a little tipsy. We're like being silly, and that was like our first experience, at least mine. And it was just the 3 of us that night. Yeah. Then we went on to like go to parties and stuff, and I always had like a bottle of liquor. I hated beer, so I would have like my backpack with like my Bacardi and, going to keg parties in the woods and smoking Newports. And, it was a lot of fun in the beginning. It was just like, this is what we did on the weekend. It wasn't every weekend, but it was, party time.
Yeah.
Smoking a little weed.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people share in high school kind of, introducing different stuff and connecting and partying and meeting people and, everything like that. It is interesting though, with the history of your family too, right? Because we hear kind of a couple different sort of stories on the podcast. I mean, some people there maybe don't notice anybody in their family really struggling with addiction. And then for your story here, there's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. And maybe for a while, you were able to kind of fend off, trying things out because, look at, the damage it's caused and, losing your father. I mean, I couldn't imagine something like that to have to go through that at 11. I mean, you mentioned there too, your first day at grade 6 is when he went in. Was he drinking up until then or no?
So no, stopped. Like, I want to say I was around like 9, maybe, and he had stopped. Like, I remember my mom got us in therapy, and I remember going to a couple of rehabs to visit him. So he did really try, and like he was sober for a little bit, but he had a lot of pain, I guess, from the liver. I don't know. So
Yeah.
his doctor gave him like pain medication. So he was taking like a lot of Vicodin, from what my mom tells me, and Vicodin has Tylenol in it, which is so bad for your liver, So the doctors told him, my mom said when he was like 27, that he had to stop drinking. 27. And he didn't make it past 43. So
Yeah.
and I think he had hepatitis C because he was an IV drug user. I think he might have done IV drugs. I'm not sure. But, he did struggle with that heroin early on. But my great grandma helped him get off that when he was very, very young. Like, she locked him in the house and wouldn't let him leave. And she got him off it, and he never went back to that. But, he did other things, and the drinking, like, he could drink like a whole pint of Bacardi, like in one slug, like not stop and be fine.
Yeah.
So I think, the damage was just, sometimes I think maybe it's like a hereditary thing. Like, maybe there's something on that side of the family, but I don't know like what his drinking pattern was like, really. I just know that at 27, he was told he needed to stop and didn't get sober until maybe like late 30s or mid 30s, messed around here and there.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that too. And there might be something there. I mean, I obviously don't know what it is, but I have heard a bunch of different stories. I mean, I think the old, quote unquote, old school idea is that somebody who's going to have problems with their liver is somebody who's been drinking for their whole life. And it's sort of at the end of their life. And I've had a couple of people on the podcast too that have, one guy had a transplant, other people were in the hospital and everything too. And, yeah, I mean, they said when they were in the hospital that there was a lot of people their age, like early 30s, late 30s. Yeah. So it definitely could be that. It just affects everybody differently. I always see when I post Jersey Mike's story, anytime we collaborate on a story on Instagram, people always comment in there, like, how much were you drinking? How often? And it's like, I think if I had to guess, like, they're kind of gauging where they're at.
Yes.
With that, but I don't think that is a fair thing. Like, I think everybody's going to process things a little bit different. If I had to take a very uneducated guess at things just from what I've heard.
Yeah.
And then too, to get sober and then things still catch up, that's tragic for sure. And then how, when you're younger and your mom with 5 kids, like, my goodness, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Where your grandmother, she lives next door, you mentioned there too. I mean, is she helping out, or are you connecting with her? Is that a good thing for you?
Grandma's the best. We would always play in front of her front yard, but there was kids that lived across the street from her. So we were always like, in her yard playing, and she would come out with she always had like bananas or something. I'm like, Grandma, don't you have some cookies or something? But she was always dieting and struggling with her weight. So she always had like the most random things, or she'd have like Jell-O or little Dixie cups of ice cream. And she would like put me and my little brother on the bus some mornings or get us off the bus. And I remember fondly like Christmas mornings, like after opening up presents, like bringing my doll babies over to her house to show her my new babies and stuff like that. She was an integral part of my growing up. Very special. Just lost her this past year, but she was amazing. And she was 94 years old. She was ready to go. She had that faith. She said, I'm going to bring these flowers to heaven. They're so beautiful, aren't they? And I'm like, Grandma, stop that. But yeah, wow. She helped out with us a lot, and she was, good for my mom and stuff. So
was that your mom's mom?
Yeah, it was my mom's mom.
Okay.
My dad's mom passed away when my dad was only 14, and he's the oldest. And I think there's 8 or 9 brothers and sisters he had. And I think she died from alcoholism. And my grandfather died from alcoholism eventually. He lived longer. He was probably in his mid-50s or somewhere around there. And then like 3 of my dad's brothers all passed away pretty much from alcoholism. So, and none of them they were all young. Nobody, like maybe 60 was the oldest, if that.
Yeah.
That's why I always think like maybe there's something else there too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like a gene or something weird. I don't know.
Yeah. And even 60's young these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot of them. But yeah. Grandma was awesome. So
Yeah. So you're going through this sort of your high school years, I guess, trying to make sense of kind of everything too that's
yeah.
happened so far. Where do you go after high school?
So after high school, and I will say like there was a lot of partying, once I was like senior year. And my friends would try other things. I wouldn't. I would just stick to my bottle of liquor and some marijuana, nice blunt or whatever. But after high school, I moved in with my sister. My sister had 2 children at the time, and she was pregnant with her third. And she got like an apartment right around the block from my growing up house. And she was a nurse, and she was like, why don't you come live with me and help me with the kids? We were always helping with the kids. Like, I would have to come home early some nights from being with my friends just to watch my sister's kids because she was at work. So I moved in with her, and I met my now husband, and I didn't go to college. I just worked. I was working at like a pharmacy for a little while. Then I was a nanny for a little while. And then I ended up being like my sister's nanny. Like she pretty much paid me. She had 6 kids. Ended up with 6 kids by the time she was 29 or so. I was like 23 and she had 6 children and I was like her nanny. So she got like childcare through her job or through the state or something. So they would pay me to take care of her kids. And she worked like full time as a nurse. So I was that for a long time.
Where'd you meet your husband at?
At a party.
Yeah.
At a party that I didn't want to go to. I did not want to go. My friend begged me to go. And I was like, well, I'm not changing. I'm just going like this. And I mean, I had jeans and like a silly little t-shirt on that said princess on it. I still have it. I saved it. And this is a really funny story. So we're hanging out and, I see him. He's like, oh, he's cute, and then we're just like all talking. And he's like, oh, let's go over here and smoke some trees over this way. And I'm like, okay. So me and my friend, we go over there. And I think we were going to get in his car or something. And he's like, oh, just give me a second. I'm waiting for my brother. And we're like, okay. And we're just like talking. And his other friends are there. And all of a sudden his brother comes walking over and my friend starts laughing hysterical. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. His brother, I went to middle school with his brother. It's the same age as me. And I had the biggest crush on his brother when I was in middle school. Like I used to write like my name with his last name. And I was just at the biggest crush on him. So it's funny because I used to write his last name and then I married and got that last name. So, but yeah, I always say, I'm like, my one friend used to say, her sister knew that I liked the brother and she would be like, well, you should see the older brother. He's so cute. And so I married the older brother.
That's a funny story.
It is.
So funny.
It's cute. Like, the girls get a kick out of it. They think it's funny when we shared that little
love story.
Yeah.
Love story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are you thinking about drinking and partying and all that stuff right now at this sort of time in your life? I mean, any red flags or anything, or things are pretty bad?
I will say really not really, but I do. We were partying a lot, I would have to say. And I do remember like at the end when I was moving out of my sister's house and I was cleaning out, I had a closet with clothes in it, but like there was bottles, about like so many bottles in that closet. Like I remember when I was leaving there, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I remember that was like a little bit of like, but at that time I was pregnant with my oldest and, drinking was out the window now. I was becoming a wife and a mom. And so
yeah,
I was like, and that was it. After I had my daughter, like I never really wanted to drink anymore. Like I would only drink.
When was that?
That was 2004.
Okay.
Well, no, 2005. So 2004, I ended up finding out I was pregnant with my little angel baby. And me and my boyfriend at the time, now we got married, so he became my husband, and we got our own little place. And I had Alexandra in 2005, April. And, I loved babies. I loved children like all my life. Like I was always like, although my little cousins used to cling to me and I was always babysitting and like being a nanny and stuff like that. So I just, it just came natural. Yes, there were like little fears because now this kid is mine. I remember like first time she like threw up, like I called my sister and she's like, you know what you're doing though. She's fine. And, after that, like I would say I was a normie. Like I would only drink like at a party, at a wedding, like very rarely, like didn't really ever buy anything for myself. My husband would drink with his buddies and he would get beers and stuff like that. But I really wanted like no part of it. I was like, I think I'm done.
Yeah. It's kind of like maybe growing up in a sense too. Maybe just kind
Yeah,
of that phase,
right.
that move past that phase.
Exactly.
More
Like a phase
partying and
out. Yeah.
yeah, more responsibility too of
Right.
being a
Yeah,
mom. And
exactly. Yeah. And then, I went on to go to nursing school. Alex was a baby. I started nursing school. Midway through nursing school, I got pregnant with my second daughter. So I had her. I had a C-section. And 7 days later, I was back at school because I was doing like an accelerated program. So you couldn't really like have time off. But they were good to me because I just had a baby. Like they didn't make me like, do too much clinical stuff. But,
yeah,
it was good. So I had Madeline and I was a nurse now. So we had two girls, me and my husband, who's a saint. We'll have to talk about him because he's the best. We have Madeline. We move again. We got our own little like house that we rent, but it's bigger. It's got 3 rooms, with washer dryer. Like we're pretty set, and we're living life. My husband's got a great job at Stony Brook Hospital. That's like a university hospital here. It's a state hospital. So he's working there, doing well. We're getting by. We're a young family, just starting out, and we're doing okay now. Then I have my third daughter, Gabriella, comes along in 2012, and that was February of 2012. Gabriella comes along, and I had a C-section with her, so I was off from work for like 8 weeks. I went back to work on a Friday. No, yeah, Friday, I think it was. Yeah, I went back to work on a Friday. I had work the next day on a Saturday. So Saturday morning, I'm up with the girls. It's probably like around 8:30-ish. Madeline and Alex are down in the living room. I bring Gabriella down in like the baby carrier, ran back upstairs to use the bathroom, talking to my husband on like the cordless house phone, because it was back then, still had those house phones. And I'm talking to my husband and I'm walking down the stairs and I slipped. My like foot went right out from underneath me. And I landed and my back hit the stairs really, really hard, like to the point where I couldn't breathe. Like I was gasping for air. And, my husband heard like the fall and he heard like all commotion and I'm like gasping and I couldn't breathe. And Alex was little. She was probably like 6 or so. And, she grabs the phone and tells my husband, he calls 911. She's there with me. We're like, I'm okay. I can barely breathe, but I'm okay. I remember asking her to get me socks because the ambulance was coming. And I'm like, go get me some socks. They took me to the hospital. I remember the nurse was like, or the resident doctor was like, well, we're going to do a CAT scan and an x-ray. She's like, I doubt anything's broken because that's like a really hard bone to break or whatever, like in your back there. And I'm like, I had broken so many bones. I'm really accident prone that I knew that something was wrong. And it turns out I fractured a thoracic bone, which is a very hard bone to break. So they gave me some pain medication. And that was not good. And that was like 2012, like when that opioid epidemic was just getting like ramped up.
yeah,
Something switched in me because I had taken pain medication before, like for my C-sections or for like a tooth extraction, and I never had an issue. But this time something different happened. I had that adverse reaction of euphoria. And I just remember really liking it. And that was pretty much it. I was off from work for another couple of weeks and to wear a back brace, no surgery or anything like that. Doctor only gave me like 2 scripts of pain medicine, but I knew where I could find some. I had family members who had prescriptions. I would ask them for stuff. And of course, your back hurts, you just fractured your back. They didn't give you anything else. Damn, yeah. And then I went back to work and I was a nurse. And there were times where, you would pull narcotics for patients and the patient wouldn't take it. And then you have an extra. And what do you do with it? We usually waste it. And you have to get another nurse to watch you when you waste it. And I was saying I was wasting it and I was not wasting it. I was putting it in my pocket and started down a slippery slope. I did it like once or twice in the beginning and then it became like every day I was doing it.
How are you feeling while this is all gathering speed?
It gathered speed slowly, I will say. It did start out slowly. And then there was a day where I got like the flu or something or a stomach bug. And I didn't have the pain medicine for like 2 days. And I was like, I don't feel good. Like I feel really sick and like the chills. And then I realized I'm like, shit, you're going through this is withdrawals. You're physically dependent on this. And
did you know that was possible?
I don't think I really did. No. I don't think I did. I really, yeah.
It was all kind of so new. I mean,
Yeah.
at the scale it was at that time too, it was all new. And I mean, I remember when I first got into the prescription pain medication, like I just got them. I got a whole bunch and it's a little bit of a long story, but I got a whole bunch and I would just start taking them. And then you build tolerance, you're taking more. But I had this shoebox that lasted me about a month and then it ran out. And I thought I was just going to kind of continue on with my life. And then, yeah, I had the same sort of thing happen. Hey, I'm not feeling well. And I had a buddy of mine that was kind of wrapped up in some stuff. And I called him and he just said it's kind of one of those things where I knew at that point my life had taken a turn because he'd been wrapped up in that lifestyle for a bit.
Yeah.
I didn't hang out with anybody else who really did or anybody. It was like my little secret. But he was like, oh, you're going through withdrawal. And I was just like, how did he just, I remember like it was yesterday. I was like, how does he just say this so nonchalantly? Like the only way for this to go away is to have more. And I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that that was possible. As you're kind of getting it started though, I mean, how do you feel, right? It's got to be conflicting up into your life too. And then you get involved with this and you're going against the grain in ways that I know that are not in line with you.
Yeah.
How did that feel internally?
I knew it was wrong and but I remember, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I wanted help. Like I wanted out because I'm like, this isn't you. You know what I mean? This isn't you. What are you doing? And I would go back and forth in my head, like ask for help, don't act like, because it was such a secret. Like my husband had no clue. And like that was a big obstacle in our marriage when that finally outed. I ended up getting in trouble at work, and rightfully so. And I knew I needed help, and I was praying to God because I believe in God. And, I was just praying like, help me, help me, help me. You have to help me somehow, some way. So I believe that it was his intervention for, I knew that I was sick one day and I had nothing. And I text my brother and to ask him for a methadone so I wouldn't be sick. But I accidentally texted my daughter, who was in 6th grade, and she didn't know what it was, but I texted her by accident. And my husband called me immediately and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it was just then and there that I was like, I need help. I need help. I need help. And he told me to leave and I left and I didn't come back for a few days. I went and stayed at my mom's house and I cried on my mom's floor. And I said I needed help. And she, kind of helped me like wean off the pain medicine. And, I went to my nurses union and I went to outpatient. I did all those things. And The nurses union tried to help me, but they really couldn't. It wasn't until like 2 years later that somebody showed up at my job, a detective, and was asking me questions. And I was like, I was honest, and maybe I shouldn't have been. I don't really know. My lawyer says I should have just kept my mouth shut because I ended up having to surrender my license and do drug court and all these things. And at that time, I was already I was clean. I was in outpatient already. Like I was doing all the things. And it came like a couple of years later. And, all the shame and the shame and the guilt was eating me alive. I didn't want anybody to know. I was so embarrassed. I had so much shame. I was so angry at myself. What did I do? I was lying to my husband, looking him in the face and lying, and just wasn't it wasn't who I am. I don't know who that person was. I really don't. It was not me, because that's not who I am. And, we had to work through it a lot of me getting better and regaining his trust and working hard at things. And then all of a sudden alcohol showed up at my door, in like 2020, like no, 22, 21, I would say, after COVID.
Yeah.
Probably 2021. The girls are bigger, and me and my husband are going out to dinners with friends and stuff like that. And I just remember one day there was like leftover liquor that I found, and it was the evening, and they were at basketball training, and I was alone, and I was like, I can have a drink. You're an adult. Yeah. People have drinks after work. I thought it was okay. And it was okay at first.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of what happened, right? I mean, the pills came in on the scene, and it was sort of like this pain management thing that people aren't going to get addicted to, but that's what you hear. There were so many people in that time frame, regular, every day, never had a problem with anything.
Yeah.
That got a prescription for an injury at work or whatever it was. And it grew into something very unmanageable, very fast, that people were not equipped to handle. And I think the services that were out there, and I'm only guessing here from my very small perspective. I don't know if anybody was really ready for that, because of the main reason. I think there was a lot of us who just weren't really what maybe people thought of as somebody who was going to be struggling with addiction. And I even go back further in your story, because I wonder that. I mean, it kind of leaves me wondering myself. I had a checkered past of things too, but never really pictured myself getting to where I got with things. And then you too, I mean, you had a lot of things happen, but you seemed like you were in a decent little spot there kind of before, in the thick of things with kids and family and start, all of that is, that's busy. But, overall, right? Like things are pretty good. And then you have this experience too. And it's like instantly hooked. What is it that takes place for some of us to where, as I'm sure there's millions of other people who they have an injury or whatever, and they take it for 3 days, or some people I've heard say they didn't like it and they just took Tylenol and maybe went through some of the discomfort or whatever. My guess is maybe all of that stuff that kind of happened before growing up, and you had therapy then and you were working through some stuff, and then life just can really seem to go fast. And maybe there's stuff we bury down and maybe we never really look at. I don't know if that's relatable at all too, or what your thoughts are on why it grabbed you.
It is. I mean, I think there was a lot that went on when I was little. Like, I kind of had to grow up really fast. I remember when my dad passed away. Like, I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting on the floor in the living room. We were watching Oprah. My mom had just come home. She was at the hospital in the morning, and then she went to get her hair done. And then she stopped home to see us kids, because we had just gotten home from school, most of us. And I remember she was sitting on the couch, and it was me, my mom, my sister, and my cousin who lived with us. We always had a cousin living with us. And my mom called the hospital just to check on my dad. And then she just said, daddy died. And I was like, what? We were just like, what? And I remember instantly, maybe within 5 minutes, just grabbing her face like this and telling her, it's going to be okay, Mom. It's going to be okay. I was 11 years old, but I felt like I needed to tell her that we're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So I think and then having to grow up pretty fast. I already knew a lot, I had seen some things, my sisters started having children and they were young and, a lot of responsibility with helping take care of them. No fault to them, it was just, that's what we did. We're a family. We had to help each other,
Yeah.
but I think, sometimes that might have been a little heavy and stuff, but I don't really know, Brad. There's like a point in my life when I was little that I blacked out. I totally don't remember like 6 months of my life from when my dad had an affair on my mom and he left and he moved out of our house. And I don't remember that. Like everybody else, and I'm like, I didn't remember that at all. Like my therapist said, you must have blocked it out. And that was when my mom said I would really be sleeping with his boots and stuff like that. But I do remember when they made up and he came home. I remember that.
Yeah.
It's weird. But that whole pill thing was just crazy. I mean, by the grace of God, and I never switched to anything else. I always took them orally. Like I never, like people would say, well, if you snort them or you do that, like, no, I'm a mom. I can't, and I took such pride in being a mom. Like I was really damn good at it, taking care of my babies and making sure they had what they needed and, baking cookies and, doing things with them, taking them to the parks and, really just investing in them. And I took a lot of pride in it. So for me to have this, I didn't want anybody to know that what are they going to think of me? Because I couldn't believe what I was doing, and I knew it wasn't me. I was the other Christine, the mom who baked cookies and, you know what I mean? Did all those fun things with my girls. So I don't know who that person was. I just don't. But the alcohol ended up coming, and like they say in AA, I think it's in the big book somewhere that like women go from like 0 to really fast. And it did. It went fast. It wasn't long. But again, I was hiding everything from my husband again and everybody. I didn't want anybody to know. And quickly.
What was so scary? If people knew?
I don't know. Because you're not supposed to be drinking at 2:00 in the afternoon, because eventually I was drinking like that. I would wake up shaking.
Yeah.
And,
what was fueling that? Like can you put a finger on it too? What was kind of fueling it?
It was a lot of the shame and guilt from the whole nursing thing. I had to surrender my license. I couldn't work as a nurse anymore. I was a nurse for like 9 years. I took pride in that too until I fucked it up, so there was a lot of work that I needed to work on to learn to love myself and forgive myself for those poor decisions and for what happened. And I'm still working on that. Like I'm still not, every day is work with that. But I think the drinking was a lot to do with because I couldn't provide for my family the way I was financially. We took a hit because I made those poor choices and, put everybody in jeopardy, so I think a lot of shame and guilt fueled that. I was able to just not think about it anymore. I was working again. I didn't really like what I was doing, but it was providing for my family. But my last job as nurse, I absolutely loved. I loved it so much. I was doing women's health, working with great doctors and nurses. And, these are the doctors that delivered my babies, and eventually I had to tell them what was going on. And they were, rooting for me. They had my back. And we'll write letters to the judge. We'll do everything that we can so you can still work, but it didn't work. The system, I feel like they made what do they say? Like made a example out of me. There were a lot of nurses that were getting in trouble at that time. Like, cause I did go to like a meeting with other nurses that were struggling with this and got in trouble. And all of them got, little contracts and they were okay. They were able to keep their license and I wasn't. And I think they needed to make an example out of somebody. And it happened to be me. And, I had to leave that nursing job and it broke my heart. It really did. I loved what I was doing. And having to just go back to square one. What am I going to do now? Where am I going to work? All I have is a nursing license. I'm an LPN. I'm not, I didn't do any big college classes. I don't have a degree or anything.
Yeah, it sounds like you felt lost in a sense, right? Like, what are my next steps going to be? Like, did these choices ruin it forever, in some areas, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it was. And like I can now apply to get my license back. It's a big process and, I have to do it, but it's going to take some time, and it's still not like guaranteed. I would have to sit in front of like a board and get letters and stuff from people, and which I know I can get. And I know I'm not that person anymore, but do I want to go back to that? I don't know. I really don't,
Yeah.
I really don't.
There's maybe more options on this side of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's so difficult, I think, when you're wrapped up in those moments where it can really feel like everything's just completely falling apart and life will just never make sense again. I had a handful of those moments in life to where I was just like, man, once the dust settled, I just think to myself, like, man, like there is no coming back from this. There is no way that I'll be able to make sense of life again. I remember in my early days, I was a convicted felon at 18, and part of my probation, it's so interesting as it is, kind of getting caught up in the system, is that you got to work or you got to go to school. Nobody really wanted to hire a convicted felon at 18. So I was like, okay, so that's like posing a lot of barriers. And rightfully so. Like I did wrong. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not playing victim to the circumstances.
Yeah.
I made the choices and had to navigate that accordingly, but it wasn't without challenges. It wasn't without barriers. And I just thought to myself, like, man, my goodness, I'm just doomed. And I remember too, I had this probation officer, my second probation officer, and she was a sweetheart. She was so, good, but she also had a job to do. And I used to have to pay, I think it was $60 a month. And I was so down and out on my luck from accumulation of poor choices where I didn't have the $60.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cut and dry. $60, you go to jail.
Wow.
And she had cut me this slack for 24 hours, to pay this. But in that moment too, I felt like, man, my life was over. Like, how can I ever make sense of this? This is where I've ended up in my life, where I had to get a girlfriend that I was dating. I get her mom to lend me $60 to kind of keep my, my free life going.
Yeah.
And I wish, like, oh my gosh, I wish looking back that I used that as motivation to say, let's turn a corner. But like literally, it was just, I just kept going until more and more and more and more stuff started happening. But yeah, it is in those moments. And you feel that shame so deep. You know what I mean? You feel it so deep. I had so many times, not the same situation, but they're just playing in my brain right now of like all of the times where you get that feeling in your stomach where it's just like, it's just empty, it's just hollow. It feels like you haven't eaten for 3 days, where it's like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that feeling. And
but we make sense of it. But it's weird, it's weird. We make sense of some of this stuff, moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
So you lean into the drinking though. You're leaning into drinking more.
Yep.
Kind of now. And it sounds like it kind of takes the same takeoff, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Where it's going,
So, and I was waking up at like 3 a.m, filled with anxiety and fear, like really scared, and I would be, my husband, but I remember him always like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm scared, and I knew what it was, and I was having panic attacks. Like I was at a family party and I just kept leaving and going to the car because I couldn't sit still. And then we went to my daughter's basketball tournament. I kept going out to the car because I had this anxiety, and I knew what it was from. And then a couple of weeks later, my husband said, let's go for a drive. I want to have a talk. And I knew what was going to happen. And I'm still thankful that he did that, and he's like, okay, it was a Friday. He's like, so what are we going to do with you? I think those were his exact words. Like, what are we going to do with you? And I was like, I don't know. I need help. I'm like, and I need to go somewhere because I'll have a seizure or something if I just stop, and I can't stop. So we made a plan, and he said, tomorrow, Saturday, which was a Saturday, I'm going to take the girls I think they had training in the morning. They all play basketball, and you're going to make some phone calls. And I did. I got up and I was filled with anxiety, and I think I made like 2 phone calls, and I got in like right away, and they were like, all right, you can come today. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll just come tomorrow. And they're like, The guy was like, no, I think you should come today. And I'm like, okay. He's like, come around 4:00. I'm like, all right. So it was probably like 10:30, 11 in the morning. And my husband came home, and I said, all right, I called, I can go to this place at this time or whatever. I said, but I need you to go to the store and get me a couple of little airplane shooters because I was like this. And I was like, get me 4 or 5. And he's like, I'll get you 3. And I'm like, deal, whatever. So he got me those. And that was it. That was the last time. I drank 2 right away. And I saved the other one for a couple of hours later. And I went into detox. And it was the best thing ever. I spent like 4 or 5 days there midway through. So after my husband, after we're good, I told him where I'm going, blah, blah, blah. I pulled each one of my daughters aside separately and let them know where I was going. And they were kind of like a little confused. I don't think they realized how bad I was drinking. I know that they knew that they knew that I was drinking. You know what I mean? I don't think they realized it was as bad as it was. They say there was like a few times when I made my amends with each of them, they each said, well, there was this time you did this, and there was this time, but I just thank God that it didn't get as bad as it could have gotten, or stories that I've heard, So I told them, each one of them, I was going to be gone for a couple of days, and then I would come home. And I really thought that's what was going to happen. I was just going to go to detox, and then I would come out and like go to outpatient, like where I went years ago, and then go to like AA and, stuff like that. And maybe like day 3 or 4 in the detox, which was a really nice place. The lady's like, but we found a place for you to go. It's 28 days and, they take your insurance and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going home, and she's like, that's not what your husband's saying. And I was like, what? And so I call my husband and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, you need to go somewhere. You need more help. And I'm like, I guess you're right, So I told the lady I would go somewhere for 2 weeks. I said, I'll just do 2 weeks. That's it. Find a place that will do 2 weeks. And she's like, okay. And I ended up staying the whole 4 weeks because it was exactly what I needed. Once I was able to let go and know that the kids are okay. My husband's got it. His parents are wonderful. My in-laws are amazing. They live right around the block. My mom lives in Ohio, but she was like sending pizzas to the house and ordering dinner and stuff like that. Yeah. And that was her way of helping. And once I was able to really let go and just focus on myself, it was like a mental break. And I think I needed it. Like I realized like that I kind of lost who I was a long time ago. I lost who I was. I lost my identity. I became a mother very young, and my whole life was my children and then working as a nurse, and that was it. And I didn't do anything for myself. Like I had no hobbies. I didn't do anything. Like if I wasn't with my kids, doing something with my kids, I would be like, and it was downtime, I would be like watching TV or something, or maybe go on date night with my husband here or there, or once in a while hang out with my girls. But I didn't even know what I liked anymore. So I really just focused on getting better and figuring out who I am again. And, They told me when I leave that I have to make a meeting, and I did. And I wasn't working. I had lost my job that I had. I got let go because I didn't show up. I went to rehab and, whatever. Ended up being the best thing because I was really able to take a year and just focus on recovery. Like I say, I took a bath in like AA or a bath in recovery, joining the community with you. I would be listening. I would walk every day. I would go for like a 2-mile walk, and I would have you in my ears listening to your podcast, and you kept talking about this community. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy talking about, And I downloaded the Sober Buddy app, and at that time it didn't work right. So I messaged you on Instagram, and I'm like, he's never going to answer me. This guy's famous or whatever. And you answered me like within like 25 minutes or so. And I was like, I remember running to my husband. I'm like, he answered me. He answered me. And I joined the community, and I shared on my first meeting. And, like the rest was history. I was like, just you're stuck with me, Brad. You and the community are stuck with me because you guys are my family. And I couldn't wait to wake up in the morning to do a meeting. I would start my mornings off. And back then, I think we only had meetings like 3 days a week in the morning. It was like only like here and there, and couldn't wait for those meetings. They were like my favorite, and just sharing and finally having people that totally get it, that I can say these things to, and they're not gonna like judge me. They're gonna be like, that was pretty clever. Like, oh, you did that? That was pretty smart, Oh, you wrote down where you hid your alcohol bottle? Yes, I did, so that I could get it the next day and throw it out. And they went, it was crazy.
Well, and we got to connect in Toronto too.
Yeah.
On the trip.
And then,
which was cool.
And I was not going to miss that at all. Like, I just started going back to work, and I was like, I can't miss that. And when I was on my interview, I actually said, like, I have a trip coming up this day, and, hopefully we can work with it. But if not, and, they were like, no, that's fine. I'm like, yes, because I'm not missing that trip.
I hope that if not was if they can't make it work, you can't take the job.
Yes. Yes, that's what it was.
It's interesting there. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, because it's definitely, wild ride in a sense. But it's interesting there too, when you go to Detox, right? And your husband has this conversation with you, and your the desperation, I think, in those moments are high, right? We got to change things. We know that things are falling apart, or they're really headed in that direction.
Yeah.
And then, 7 days into Detox, right? You've kind of all of a sudden talked yourself into, maybe being cured in a sense, or maybe I'll just take the easier, softer way. We hear a lot, right? And you're already kind of going into, I can't do the 28 days, or I'll only do 2 weeks. Yeah. That's so interesting, because that's so common. And I think for people that are in your shoes too, right? You have a family, you're a mom, the world needs you. And the reason is because that's become your life and your identity, like what you shared about too.
Yeah.
But going for those 7 days and then the 28 days, other people figured it out, and they always will. It's and I love that you shared that, you just sort of letting go of maybe in some sense the expectations that you had on yourself or the world has on moms or parents in general.
Yeah.
You have to be there. I think taking that 28 days for yourself, like you shared there, completely changed things, because it gave you maybe that opportunity to really look at where you were in life, and that you weren't happy with how you were going about things. Did your husband know you were drinking this whole time? Did he eventually figure it out, I'm guessing?
Yeah. 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 He figured it out eventually. I don't think he realized that it was going on for as long as he had thought, but he was finding like bottles around the house and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where I thought I hit them very well. I didn't.
Yeah.
But
how hard was it for him to come forward with this, to say, hey, like, we've got to figure something out here?
Yeah. It was really hard for him. It was extremely hard for him. And he's doing therapy now. And I think, it's a good thing, coming to terms with that. I remember when I was making my amends with my 20-year-old daughter, Alex, and it was very hard We cried a lot. It was very emotional. And she said to me, like, but you were just gone, because I wasn't supposed to be gone for that long. You were just gone. And Dad was crying and he didn't know what to do. And you guys are supposed to know what to do. You're the parents, And in that moment, like, because I remember one time I was scared and I told my mom and she said, I'm so scared too. And I was like, no, you can't be scared. You're supposed to say it's going to be okay. So when my daughter said that, it was just, I realized in that moment, like, what I put my husband through, and how hard it must have been. He didn't really have people in his life growing up with addiction. He didn't have any of those struggle. Like, he didn't really see that. You know what I mean? Like an aunt or uncle that's gone to rehab or whatever. For me, it was normal. So-and-so's away and they're getting help now. That was just the way it was. I was so used to it. So for him to have to deal with somebody like this, it was very, very hard. And, we're still working on it. We're working on our communication. I give a lot of credit to the 12-step program. Like, it really has taught me to accept things that I cannot change, like I can't change what happened. All I can do is show him that I'm not that way anymore. And every day I get up and I do what I'm supposed to do to continue to live this life and have this peace that I have. And I remember we were doing like a family session when I was inpatient, and him saying, well, you're going to have to like show me kind of like your word, it means nothing right now. Like, 'cause you've lied so much. And I knew that, and I remember thinking in that moment, well, I'm going to show you, that I can. And, within a couple of months, he did say, like, I see what you're doing. Like, I see it. Good for you. Keep going. Like, keep going, And I do. I just keep going. And to wake up like with this peace, it's a peace I'd never had before. I've never, like, even when I wasn't drinking or wasn't taking pain medication, like, there was always something. I feel like there was always something. And now maybe it's my God, just because I have such a relationship with God now. And I get down on my knees and I pray every morning and I just give everything over to him. And I just trust that I'll do the next right thing, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. You're going to learn how to figure it out.
Yeah. If nothing else, we're going to learn how to figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
Man, those are tough. Those are tough conversations. I mean, that you've had.
Yeah.
With your family right there, your daughters and your husband. And, I think that's, a big part of the truth of all of this is that things don't heal overnight.
Yeah.
For us, for those around us, especially if we've been doing something for X amount of years. I mean, we can't expect things to flip overnight. It takes time.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure. I mean, if we're drinking, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same thing, So kind of keeping that as number one, and then things fall into place. I think you're right where you're supposed to be, even with all the difficult moments and everything else. And it's been an exciting journey to watch. It's always been a pleasure to have you, obviously in the community and in everything you bring. I mean, it's, you can't find it anywhere else. You're unique in that way, your story. And I know just from knowing you, you've had your challenges, you've had your challenges with everything that's happened, and that's life, I guess. We can't go back and change things and how they played out. And we can't see the future to see how they're going to play out. Maybe if we could, we'd say, oh, I only have to hang on for
this long,
another 30 days, and then an opportunity is going to, land in my lap. We don't know that either. We sort of just have to trust in doing the next right thing.
Yeah.
I had another question too about, your daughters. I mean, what role do they play in you staying sober? And when exactly did you get, your sober date?
So my sober date is July 28th, 24. And they're like my biggest cheerleaders, They really are. They love it. They, encourage me to go. They understand when I can't get to a game or something of theirs, because they do play a lot of games. They're okay. They're like, I get it, Mom. I understand. You have to do that. They understand. They reap the benefits. You know what I mean? They get this mom. They get this version of me, the best version of me. And they know that it's all because of my recovery. I have to do my meetings. I have to take some self-care time. Like, they love it. They're like, oh, are you in a meeting? Okay. Like, if I'm doing a meeting at home, or, you know what I mean? Or if I'm going to one in person, like they came to, my 1 year anniversary at my home group in AA. And, they were excited, and they got to see, and it was good for my husband too, because he was there. They got to see what it's like and what I'm doing there, like, the support I'm getting. And they're like, okay, now, like, I get what you're doing and how special it is.
Yeah.
They're excited for it, So
Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Everybody's going to go about things differently, and I'm not here to say what's the right way to do anything or the wrong way. It's not my style, but I think it is really cool that you've involved them with this side of the journey. And this might sound weird, but they were impacted by the other side.
Yeah.
And to leave them just with that, I'm not a fortune teller or predict the future, but to just leave them with that experience and not share this one, I don't know, might seem a little bit strange. I just think it's really cool that you're sharing so much of this side of the changes you're making and how your outlook on life has completely changed.
Yeah.
And to have them on board with that. And also the fact that you shared, this runs in the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that, me staying sober, you staying sober is going to guarantee for everybody else.
Right.
But my goodness, maybe it would have changed things for us if we heard maybe this side of things or saw this, maybe, right? I don't think it can hurt.
Yeah. I think it's very important that they know, and I had been telling them even before my issues that alcohol and drugs run in the family, because they would see it. They would be at certain family parties and see certain things. And I would say, let's go, we're leaving. I'm not staying here anymore. Somebody's too messed up and I don't want my kids around that. So they knew a lot, and they knew that, I always kind of told them, you guys got to be careful. This things runs in the family, So I think, showing them, they saw what that version of me was like, and that I messed up and I struggled, and, and then, I had to go do something and take responsibility for what was going on with me, and then rise up, and pull myself up. I think that they need to see that because that's life, life is going to life. Things are going to happen. So for them to see, like, it can go from poop and then down and then back up with the support of friends and family and my faith and community, like, we can be okay. Things happen, we're going to struggle, and, you got to rise up, you got to rise up. So that's kind of what I like to tell them. And, they're like, is it all right if I tell so-and-so, like a friend? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. And one daughter was like, well, can I give you your phone number? Because so-and-so's uncle might want to call you. And I'm like, that's fine. So, like, they're teenagers now. I know things are going to happen, but they know that they can come to me, and their friends can come to me, because there's no judgment here. I get it. I get it. So,
yeah, that's a beautiful kind of full circle type thing to, let people know they're not alone if they're struggling.
Yeah.
Heading towards wrapping up here too. It was interesting too. You had mentioned, back sort of when you got caught up for, with the detective and stuff there, and you kind of mentioned everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were honest. You were honest about the situation, and kind of wondering, did I go about it the right way?
Yeah.
I'm thinking really what set you free on this journey is telling the truth, being truthful, harboring secrets and just keeping it all in. And I got an email this morning, and obviously I'm not going to share the full extent of it for the person who sent it, but keeping it a secret has kept them stuck. And I think for so many of us, it
Yeah.
keeps us stuck because the idea of what if
Mhm.
everybody figures out and my entire world comes crumbling down and I lose out on opportunities
Yeah.
and in everything else, but I think the flip side of the coin is like, what if I don't, if I just
Mhm.
bury this
Yeah.
and don't ever accept accountability or responsibility?
Yeah.
Do I actually give myself the closure and the opportunity of forgiveness to move forward? And I wonder about that in my life too. Like, what if I would have just went on my merry little way,
Mhm.
and never resolved anything and
Right.
never faced the truth
Yeah.
and just kept everything in? I don't think the level of healing would have been possible. Definitely no podcast,
Yeah.
definitely none of the other stuff. And yeah, I think it's those times in life that are the darkest and they don't feel like there's any way out that really give us sort of maybe that fire or maybe that opportunity to grow as opposed to maybe the opportunity to stay stuck. I don't know. I don't know if any of that resonates or if
It
that's out left
does.
field.
It does. And I like that you said that, going back to the detective, because you know what? I was honest. I was honest, and I hadn't been honest in a long time. And being honest, I think, is they talk in 12 steps, you got to be honest and vulnerable and all that. And, just it's changed my life, being honest about everything and learning how to like communicate properly. And, I said to my daughter as well, like, if I had to go through what I had to go through to get to where I am now, so be it. So be it, because I feel so much better and have such a peace, and it's okay. It's okay. So
Yeah.
there's a book, I think it's Jack Canfield, The Success Principles, where he says, you have to be 100% responsible for your life, and that like really got me like thinking, like, I just have to accept everything. I have to accept the cards I was dealt. I have to accept the family I was born into. I have to accept the decisions, the way the trajectory of my life went, accept it and just go with it. And I am like, now I'm a recovery coach, 5-time certification coach. I'm working in a rehab, like I'm on a podcast with you. Like, I'm going to start my own little business. Like, you said to me, like, would you see yourself where you are? Like, no. If you would have said, like, in a year, you're going to be sitting doing a podcast with Brad, you're going to have your coaching certification, you're going to have gone to Palm Beach with a bunch of strangers, you're going to have gone to Toronto, I would have said, no way. Not
Yeah.
Christine, not her.
Everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else would have, but yeah,
Mhm.
so relatable. Yeah. I mean, I always think that too. If somebody would have told me, 15 years ago when I was getting arrested out in front of the airport
Yeah.
that I was going to actually have a life. And
Right.
like, I was even thinking of it yesterday. Like we got this air mattress and we got family coming and I'm trying to find this hole in this air mattress.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but while I was doing that, I was for whatever random thought, I was like, you know what? It's the craziest thing in the world. I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
I was just like, it is literally the craziest thing in the world
Mm-hmm.
for me to have 3 kids to
Yeah.
how I used to live my life. I mean, I have periods of my life a year at a time where I don't even remember doing laundry or going grocery shopping
Yeah.
or doing anything. I mean, I remember working a job that I worked in a kitchen at a restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and I would wake up hungover as hell and
Yeah.
I would wash my shirt from the night before in the sink, rub it, wash with my hands. And
Yeah.
I was running late to work, so I'd have to hang it out the side window of the car and just put the window up and
Right.
drive to work, and hopefully it dried and the damn thing was always still wet. And
Yeah.
I never figured it out. That didn't work.
Yeah.
Go from living like that to now. And it's
Mhm.
not that I have everything, but I can relate to you on that peace of mind. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Where I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about. I heard this quote the other day and I don't know who to credit it to, but it's from somewhere. Nobody's looking for me and I'm not looking for anybody. It's something
Mhm.
like that. And it was just such a beautiful way to kind of describe life is nobody's looking for me because of what I've done or what I've said. And I'm not looking for anybody else. Like I'm just in my own lane.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
sometimes it takes a little bit of shit, I guess, to
Yeah.
get us there,
Yeah, it
you know?
does. And you know what? We're like the strongest people. I really think we are, and very unique and very driven, and we're unstoppable.
Yeah.
We're unstoppable.
In
So,
a year, too. I mean, a
mhm.
year, don't get me wrong, is a long time,
Yeah,
over a year. But I mean, geez, just sit back for a second and think about 5 or 10. I mean, live for today, but
yeah,
the sky's the limit.
yeah, yeah. Let's
Proud of you.
go.
Proud of you, Christine. So
Thank
proud of
you.
you.
I thank you so much, Brad. You really are an angel, and I'm so glad that God brought you into my life because you really do great things, and I know you do it out of the kindness of your heart. And like this podcast, like just listening to these stories, like I just know how much they help me. They just helped me so much relate. Okay. So what you do for people that you don't even realize you're touching their heart is just amazing. And all of your guests, like everybody that comes on, thank you. You guys are brave and I respect you and I appreciate you coming on and helping us. We got to do this together. We recover together.
Yeah, 100%. Well, hey, thanks for being an avid listener and a good friend.
Yeah.
One question before we scoot. I can't help but think about the one person out there who is just holding on to all of this, right? The secret of where they're at. They're not letting anybody know because the fear behind being honest just seems like their life is going to be over.
Yeah.
And me being on the other side, I know that that's the beginning. I
Mhm.
know that going through that door is the beginning, but that's easy for me to say where I sit today.
Yeah.
What would you mention to somebody who's just holding it all in and just trying to quietly make all of this go away?
I would want to say it's going to get better. It's not going to end this way. It's not going to end this way. There is a way out. All you have to do is just ask somebody, anybody. You can call a hotline. You can message me. You could text a friend, anybody. All you have to do is just say that word, and there is somebody there that is going to help you. And it's not going to end this way. You can and you will recover. It doesn't have to be this way. I know they say, like, you never have to feel this way ever again.
Yeah.
Just take that little step.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you, Brad.
Well, there it is. Another awesome episode here on the podcast. Huge shout out to Christine. I'll drop her contact information down in the show notes below if you want to reach out and say congrats, or if you're able to relate to any part of her story. I know it means a lot to the guests who come on the show, share their story, to hear from all of you. So that would be incredible. So much stuff to take away there, but the biggest thing I think I left with was how honesty sets us free. How sharing our truth and not hiding in the shadows anymore offers that peace, or that ability to move forward, like that closure to what was, and to move forward with things. And I have so many chats. I feel like it's one of the most common chats, is the fear that's holding us back, or holding you back, of what if people knew? What if people found out? What if my job found out? I think the reality is this, and it's not going to be true for everybody. Eventually, people will find out if you keep going. And it's not going to be that you're getting sober. It's going to be that it's created more chaos and more problems in your life and becomes very unmanageable. I don't know. I get it that there's fear there, but I've never heard of it really ever going sideways, of like those things actually coming true, of like what are our biggest fears of getting support or getting help or plugging into something. I've never heard it the other way. The story I hear all the time is people are so happy that they did that for themselves, that they were truthful about how they were feeling and how alcohol, substances was impacting their life and preventing them from living their best life, and to be present in all of that stuff. So if you're on the fence there, maybe there was something said during this episode that can help you decide where you go next. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.